welcome to the British History Podcast Wrap-Up Show. I'm Benjo.
And I'm Brandon. And this is Season 1, Episode 10, Boudicca's Rebellion, Part 1. Benjo, Boudica is early on in the entire, I'm at 450 plus episodes. We're at 10 right now. So it's early on, but out of all the characters, Boudica's one of my favorites. Have you heard me talk about Boudica?
Yes.
Yeah? What do you know about Boudica?
She's a warrior, a female warrior.
Female warrior queen. So Benjo, we've been slack for a week or two getting one out. We've had a few things going on, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah, what's been going on?
The barbecue festival.
Yeah, we had a barbecue and blues festival. Benjo's band played an amazing set. Brought the house down. I've never seen such an energetic crowd. You want to tell them about that?
Yeah, we played music at Howard's upstairs. And
What was that band?
O'Doyle Rules.
The O'Doyle Rules reunion.
And then
Who's in O'Doyle Rules?
Me, Jarrett Witt, who would probably be special guest on this sometime, and then Freddie
McClendon, their friend, the lead singer. You've been playing some golf too, I understand. Yeah. And a little on the heavier side, we started the murder trial of Freddie's dad, and then it got mistried. So we've had a lot going on.
And then you had a trial just at work, and it got mistried.
Well, the
guy fired his lawyer.
Yeah, it was crazy. So there's been an insane amount of stuff going on here. But Benjo, of course, is my producer, co-host, puts all this together. Benjo, let's talk about Boudica. So Boudica was the queen of the Iceni, and Season 1, Episode 10, Boudica's Rebellion, Part 1. There will be a Part 2. Boop. Starts off with the finding of the head of Claudius in 1907 in a river, I think. And
1907?
Well, they found the statue of the head of Claudius in a river in 1907. And Jamie starts off kind of setting the whole mood. But anyway, it talks about the druidic roots, how the Druids likely decapitated this, and the decapitation of the Claudius statue showed their deep hatred for what the Romans had done. But anyway, getting back to Boudica, Jamie talks about how Boudica may not have been her real name, but it could have been a title, it could have been a nickname, but we're going to go with Boudica. Some people could say Boudica, I think.
It's spelled like that.
Yeah. So again, we're dealing with stuff like where I am now in 1088. There's starting to be a ton of written sources. I mean, you think wherever Jamie's going to finish his project in his lifetime? You do? You think he'll get to, I think he wanted to get to like the 1700s. I don't think he'll get to the 1700s in his lifetime. I mean, we're at 1088 now. It's been 13 years since he started the project. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, right now we have the only written sources we have are really Roman sources, as I understand it, and then archaeology. We've talked about this before. So, Boudica's husband, Prasutagus, he was the king of the Iceni, and he had negotiated with the Romans. He had basically set up this client kingdom where he bowed down to the Romans as long as the Romans would let him rule. He was the king of the Iceni, although it was a client kingdom, so he was really ruled by the Romans. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he kind of made a will, and he said that his heirs were his daughters and Nero, Remember Nero? Who's Nero? The Roman emperor.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
I remember the name here.
We went to Rome and blah blah. You saw all the Nero stuff.
Yeah.
So he had negotiated heavily with the Romans. He hadn't put up a lot of resistance. So he wanted to remain in power. And as part of his will, he did not name Boudica because he did not trust, well, they think that he likely didn't trust that Boudica would remain loyal to the Romans. So Prasutagus eventually died without a son. And
Did Boudica have any
well, that
kids?
was Boudica's husband.
So Boudica had no kids.
She had 2 daughters.
Oh.
So her husband died without a son. And what do you think the Romans' attitude towards women rulers was?
Anger.
Yeah, they didn't like that. But the Britons had a much more open attitude towards women rulers. So Rome under Nero, Nero really didn't like client kings anyway. He liked just being in control. Even he didn't even like giving the British leaders titles and allowing them. He just wanted Rome control. He didn't want any of this client kingdom nonsense stuff. So at the same time, a lot of these Britons, the wealthy and elite noble Britons, had gotten in debt with the Romans. They had kind of submitted to Rome and they'd gotten in debt. And because really the Britons were more unsophisticated financially and they were more of the barter system. Have you learned about the barter system? The barter system is where you don't use cash and money to buy things. You trade what you need for other things that you have, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so they didn't really understand the Roman financial system. And so they were into the barter system. So you remember Camulodunum was, we're jumping around a little bit, but Camulodunum was one of the capitals, the Trinovantes capital at least. Current day Colchester, I think, is what Camulodunum is.
Or either their current day or Colchester.
Colchester is the current name. Camulodunum was I believe. And so remember, the Romans took over. They just took over Camulodunum as their base of Roman operations and for Roman veterans. And the Trinovantes really disliked the Romans because of this and the oppression. So the Iceni were another British tribe. They were being conscripted, basically like the Romans were like, you need to be part of our army. That's conscription. We're making you part of our army. And they were also being taxed to pay for their own oppression.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy, isn't it? Taxed on their grain. So they had to pay this huge amount of their own grain to pay for their own oppression, so that the Romans could control them. So the Iceni were starving. About this time, we talked about Prasutagus, the one that died without a male heir. Well, he died now, and so the girls, of course, were named by him as his heir, and so Boudica ruled, but was only supposed to be ruling as regent while the girls were minors. But the Romans said basically, look, we're not even doing this client kingdom stuff. That agreement died with Prasutagus, and so the Romans sent to take all of Prasutagus' stuff and just rule completely without any type of middleman, any type of British middleman. So the Icenians were like, whoa, hold up,
pick it up, Terry.
And so this is where really bad stuff happened. The Romans raped Prasutagus' daughter and beat Boudica.
Wow.
Yeah, it got really heavy.
Wait, why didn't they just say Boudica's daughter?
Boudica and Prosotagus' daughter. Yeah, you're right. Good call. So at this point, because of this client kingdom deal, Boudica was likely a Roman citizen, and so raping a Roman citizen was extremely off limits.
Yeah.
It could actually end in execution, and so the even though certain Britons were Roman citizens, they were still looked down on, you know, even with Roman citizenship. And so the Iceni started flocking behind Boudica. And there's much legend behind Boudica. And then their neighbor tribes, the Trinovantes, also got behind Boudica, who was now the queen. She was ruling. And to unify, they started to march on Camulodunum. So there's 40 miles from wherever they were. And so they started this march. And they started gaining supporters. And we know that it was at least several tens of thousands, but numbers back then got a little exaggerated sometimes.
Yeah.
Some people said it was in the hundreds of thousands. So we're going to say anywhere from 20,000 to 200,000, which is a huge difference. But that's a big army there, you know?
A big army.
Big army. I mean, to put in perspective, 20,000 men, like you go into, Madison Square Garden, that seats 20,000 people. So it could be that many people, or it could be.
Wait, Madison Square Garden only seats 20,000
Maybe it's a little bit more. I don't know. But think about like the Hornets Stadium. We've been to the Hornets Stadium, Charlotte Hornets. You haven't been to the Hornets? You have.
Maybe I have.
Yeah, I think you have. Oh goodness, Hornets fan here. I know your brothers have been. Maybe you hadn't been.
I think I have.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, it seats 20,000.
Yeah.
Right. So, so it could be one group of that or 10. But anyway, they knew it was a huge number, and when they arrived at Camulodunum was essentially undefended. The Roman defenders had left and left the several thousand undefended Romans there. You can imagine how scared they were.
Yeah.
Well, so the Romans were begging for support from Londinium. This is the first mention of what we know as London now. Back then, it was the Romanized name was Londinium. And so, guess how many people the Romans sent from Londinium?
30.
No.
20.
200.
Oh.
Sorry, that doesn't. My numbers were wrong. Look kind of.
Oh,
goofy.
I thought that was. Is that supposed to be a 0 too?
Yeah, sorry. So they sent 200 men to guard against Boudica's 20,000 to 200,000 supporters. And this, Jamie keeps saying it's an army of women, but I mean, I know it was a combination. It had to have been a combination of men and women. They were pushing their little carts with wheels and stuff, And so at the time, Camulodunum had become really Romanized. Camulodunum had been the capital of one of the capitals of the Trinovantes, but it had become super Romanized. Their streets were gridded out. They had like Roman tiles and stuff, and the Britons really resented the fact that it had become so Romanized. Bless you.
Thank you.
And so, like we said, the Romans that were left must have felt like they were stranded. The Romans had been there 17 years, and they had essentially become secure and comfortable there.
Yeah.
And there's I think Jamie says there's a kind of an uncertain account of exactly what happened, but Boudica's army led out of rage. They didn't even really loot. They just wanted revenge. They were prepared for war, so they had all this fancy Roman stuff there. They didn't loot it. They didn't want the material goods.
Yeah.
They just wanted revenge. So they burned most of the town to the ground, and with these Roman structures, stucco buildings, they had to, it wasn't just like a fire that they started and it spread. They had to intentionally burn down all this stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so they were burning down all this stuff. And one building in particular, in the corner of the city, is mine on?
Yeah.
Okay, good. In the corner of the city was the stone and brass temple. It may have been,
Stonehenge?
no,
Oh.
no. This is a just built out of stone and brass temple. You know what Stonehenge was? It wasn't a
I
temple.
know. I just thought you said stone, so I
Yeah.
thought maybe that would turn into Stonehenge.
No, but Stonehenge was way before this.
Oh yeah, we talked about this.
We did, yeah. It's
Sorry.
way before this. So some of the Romans that were left behind, they went and hid in this secure stone and brass temple that may have been dedicated to the Roman emperor. Well, eventually the Romans broke into there and they just murdered and killed everybody in there.
Yeah.
So the Roman Ninth Legion headed south to save them, but even the Roman Ninth Legion couldn't beat. I mean, they couldn't save them. The
Yeah.
Britons beat them off,
Very powerful.
at least temporarily.
Who is that foreshadowing?
Maybe a little foreshadowing. Good word there. So Jamie kind of ends a little bit with, well, where are all the, all this destruction, all these people killed, where are all the bodies? Because we've made a lot of strides in archaeology, we should be able to find some bodies. They could have just been left not buried, and then animals and bacteria and everything eats them up. He says Boudica may have sacrificed them, and that could account for why we couldn't find the bodies. But I don't really know what that means. Like sacrificed and ate them? I mean, sacrificed and cut them up?
Yeah.
I don't know. That was a question that I had. But then, what is this? Decianus Catus was a Roman leader that was responsible for Boudica's daughters being raped and Boudica being beaten. And so Boudica starts heading south to confront him right now.
Whoa.
That's where the episode ends. So we're gonna finish now, but we're gonna our next one will be season 1, episode 11, Boudica's Rebellion Part 2. We promise we'll be back quicker this time, next time around. We got a couple weeks until we go to Roots Rock Revival
up in New York,
Rockstar Camp with a bunch of the old Allman Brothers. Not these guys, they've been gone for a long time. But anyway, Benjo, we'll finish with a high five. I've been Brandon this has been the British History podcast wrap-up show. I've been Brandon.
And I have been Benjo.
We'll see you next time.
Don't believe